Hello and welcome to our very first episode of our video podcast, Car Fanatics. As the name suggests, we are going to talk about cars, not a specific car, but cars in general. For our first episode, we have invited a YouTuber who has created his channel roughly 2 years ago and has uploaded around 50 videos since then. It is still a rather small channel, but if you're familiar with YouTube and car content in particular, then you have noticed that the popularity of this particular content has exploded in recent years, thanks to content about new cars, sports cars, and on the other hand, expensive hypercars. Our guest today is going into a different direction, and this is going to be a topic of our interview as well. So, due to the current health situation and the travel restrictions, we were unable to invite him into our studio. So we pre-recorded this video a few days ago. And without further ado, please give a warm welcome to Urban 126P. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to record our very first video podcast. In order to keep this one short, I would like to start with my first question, which is, how did you decide on creating a YouTube channel that seems to be going against the trend?
Well, this was not an easy decision to make. I was pretty late in the game when I started my channel. And as there are similar channels that work very well, I thought, why not go into a different direction? My main goal with the channel is to share my hobby with other car enthusiasts, in particular with owners of classic cars, or as we in Austria say, old-timer. I know this word has a different meaning in the English language, but we mean no disrespect. And furthermore, YouTube gives creators the opportunity to receive a swift feedback. Of course, this goes for positive and negative feedback as well, but that is something that we creators have to get used to. Sure enough, there are the occasional negative comments without merit, but sometimes people just like to vent their emotions, and if that helps them, then I'm okay with that. And I would like to point out that I enjoy making these videos, and it is a great challenge, especially recording them in 3 different languages. And let me just say that the editing the footage is my least favorite part.
How did you decide on recording your videos in those 3 languages?
Well, at first I recorded the videos only in English, but I quickly realized that my reach was very limited. And then I started to record them in German. That enlarged my reach a little bit, but sometime later I started recording the videos in Polish too. And if you're aware of the history of the car, then this was just the logical step. And of course, being able to speak Polish helps.
How did you end up with a Fiat 126P in the first place?
Honestly, this is a mystery for myself as well. Before I bought it in 2010, I never thought about buying this car. At this point in time, I had my driver's license for just 2 years, and I was basically a new driver. I did know about these cars because I was spending my holidays in Poland for most of my childhood. So maybe the cars have imprinted themselves into my brain, and I bought one almost 20 years later. So in 2010, I was browsing through some car selling pages that had a Fiat 126P in their offering. And then I found one that was interesting to me. So my father and I drove to Germany to check out the car and signed the papers. And on December 10th, 2010, the car was delivered.
You have had the car for a little over 10 years. In this time, the car has changed significantly. Was that the plan all along, or did you decide on changing things later on?
Well, in the beginning, I was happy to have a Fiat 126P and I wasn't planning on changing anything. However, after some time, I wanted to personalize it, so I started to change a few things. I started with swapping the plastic front and rear bumpers for chrome ones, and in the same process, I removed the plastic covers from the doors. This was nothing too complicated and done rather quickly. I have gone into greater detail about this in a recent video, so if you're interested in the whole story, you can check it out on my YouTube channel.
And clearly, those weren't the only changes that you made to the car.
That is correct. This was just the start to a seemingly never-ending story of changing things on the car. In 2015, I started having serious thoughts about having the car restored. Unfortunately, I was unable to finance the whole thing myself, so I drafted a business plan and sent it to a possible sponsor. That did not turn out the way I hoped for, but I started with the restoration anyway. That took 17 months, and it was a very long time, but in the end it was worth it.
It has been a little over 3 years since the restoration finished. What are your thoughts thinking back, and have you had any problems with the car ever since?
When I think about the restoration or the result of it, I am still very pleased. In retrospect, maybe I should have informed myself a little bit better about the costs, but that is in the past. The first thing everybody notices is the color of the car. I was thinking for a long time about it, and in the end I decided to go with the electric orange of the Ford Focus ST. A funny note on the side, when I talk to people and say my electric orange Fiat 126P, then they immediately think that I have a Fiat 126P with an electric engine. This is why I had to change a video title a few weeks ago. People were slightly misled, and you don't want to mislead people on the internet. But anyway, I haven't had any serious problems with the car until 2019. I started the year with changing the fan belt, and again, there's a whole video about that on my channel. Then at a later point in the year, I started to have problems with the starter of the car, but luckily both problems have been fixed and the car is all okay now.
What would you say to people when they decide to buy a classic car or maybe a young timer?
That is definitely not an easy decision to make. A very important thing is that the desired car is at least in a decent condition. If, for example, it has corrosion, don't buy it. Keep looking for one that has a solid base. It helps when the seller has knowledge about the car's history. The buyer should definitely have a space where the car can be parked when not driven. An advantage of old cars is that a crafty mechanic will be able to repair a lot themselves. Unfortunately, that is not the case for me, but on the other hand, I learned a lot over the last few years. The most important thing is that a person should have as much fun as possible with their classic car, even if it's not being driven daily. Most of them are only being driven in the summer or for special occasions.
Thank you for being our very first guest in our show, and we hope to see you soon in our studio.
It was my pleasure, and I'm sure there will be plenty of opportunity to come back at a later time, but then in person. Thank you.
This concludes our very first episode of our video podcast, Car Fanatics. We certainly hope you enjoyed it, so stay tuned for more episodes in the future. For now, this has been it, so be safe, stay safe, and see you next time. Bye bye.